I get quite some emails from people that are still in corporate asking me like, how did you do it? Can I call you? I also want to leave, but I'm not sure how. And yeah, I know what you mean.
Hi and welcome to How I Became a Perfumer podcast. In each episode, we are exploring the different roles and opportunities in the fragrance industry, as well as talks to founders of the independent olfactory projects. My name is Tanya Mironova, and I'm here to help you sniff out the best career opportunities. My guest for today's episode is Franziska Josteit. Franziska studied finance and business in Paris, London, and Amsterdam. She worked more than 12 years at International Flavors and Fragrances, which we'll further refer as IFF, where her last job title was a scent design manager. After these years in the industry, she created a high-end perfume brand called Luisa Jo, while Perfumery. Franziska, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invite.
Well, I'm so happy to have you and been following you for a while. Your energy is just...
me too, I guess. The two of us, indeed.
Well, thank you. But
small industry.
I really love your energy. And I was so surprised to find out that you worked in a corporate environment for 12 years. Yeah. A lot of people don't have any energy after that, I believe. Apart from maybe staying in the corporate world. But you're very special. So my first question is, you're a very creative person, but how initially you found yourself in finance and business?
Yeah, good question indeed. I come from a family where perfumery was not one of the options, let's say, to study. So I was looking to, I just finished my A-levels. I was open for something creative, but thought about interior design maybe. But then I was a bit curious also in other directions. I was not sure about what I would do. So I just thought, why not maybe just study business and finance, which gives me a good, foundation kind of. But then I thought, in order to be a bit different and to have a bit more fun, I wanted to live in Paris. So I just, that was my idea. Okay, I combine a bit. I also loved the language French, was one of my passions at school as well. So then at least I thought it's a challenge for myself to study finance and business in Paris. And that was in the end really nice, I have to say.
Well, that's interesting. And maybe our listeners don't know, but your mother tongue is German.
I'm German, indeed. I'm German. And when I was then... Because, the entrepreneurship was something I really wanted to discover. But then I thought business and finance give me good foundation. So then it gives me a bit of time also to see what I will do once I'm done, so that I'm a bit open to anything what comes along. And what happened, I was in the Thalys, going back home for a weekend, and I met a woman. She was next to me, and was a big learning for me. So it's always good to talk to strangers. And she told me that she works at Symrise.
Wow.
And I didn't know about like Symrise and what those companies exist, that was totally new to me. And I was very intrigued about the fact that there are companies that produce perfumes on a big scale, So I had, from that moment on, I had in my mind kind of, once I'm done, I will definitely for sure look at a position at one of those companies.
So you felt the initial connection to the fragrance world, even though you didn't consider it.
Yeah, I back then when I met this woman, I was still studying. I think I was in my first year of my bachelor or something. So then I knew, okay, I keep it in mind. Once I'm done, I will have a reach out, and I will see if I can find a position in one of those companies.
Yeah, great. I mean, the first piece of advice, talk to strangers. It's very good for the careers and also for life.
Yeah.
What happened then?
Yeah, I went to London for my third year. I did a French study, and that was 2 years, only 2 years. And then I did the third year in London, simply because Germany was a bit more difficult on they didn't know the French system, and they make it more difficult. So London was really easygoing, a public university there, just asking for the international credit points. And once I did my degree in London, I wanted to do a master. And again, Germany was 2-year master and Amsterdam was 1 year. And it was all in English, so there was no language issue. Yeah, so then I decided to go to Amsterdam. And after I finished my graduation, I applied at IFF in Hilversum, which was close to Amsterdam. That was my idea. And they saw, of course, on my CV, it was written that I'm German. They needed somebody in Germany. There was just somebody being pregnant. And so they asked me to come to Hamburg in the sales office, which also made a lot of sense that I start in sales because I just studied business and finance. So that was a good entrance. So they gave me the opportunity to work in sales as an traineeship, basically, for 1 year. I did marketing and sales for the German customers, kind of fine fragrance, beauty care. Hamburg used to be small. I think we were 14 people. I needed to do a little bit of everything, kind of.
Were there any, at least, similarities to what you learned and what you needed to do at a company, or you just learned by doing?
Yeah, I remember I started, and I was the first day of sitting in one of the meetings, like weekly meetings. And I was totally overwhelmed because the industry, as you might know, is very complex. That was a small sales office. So all the samples are coming from Paris, but other samples are coming from Hilversum, and about our customers, suppliers, and all those names. I was totally overwhelmed. I was sitting there, okay, this is next level. I need to adjust and take my time to figure out what are the streams that I need to understand here. But the study was very different, of course. The industry is very, very specific, let's say. But I guess the study was still giving me a good basic knowledge, and also just to be open in different languages. We had a lot of contact, of course, with the Paris Creative Center. So my French was also, very welcome, let's say.
Oh yeah, and, totally. They love it in the industry.
English also always good for emails and stuff. So I think I didn't know about ISIPCAM back then. So that was my way to kind of figure out how I can enter the industry.
Yeah, but I see at least a few coincidences which are very interesting, to look from the perspective. Like you talked to a woman in the train, like a classic situation for a movie. And then you applied for a position and they really needed you, because we know how competitive the industry is, and the fact that they needed exactly you, though in Hamburg, not in the Netherlands, but again, still worked.
Yeah.
But how do you find yourself transitioning further to the next role? And were you studying, or at least somehow developing your sense of smell in this transitional process? Because I believe it's not possible not to.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I worked for 2.5 years, I guess, in Hamburg. And then I noticed that I would like to be closer to the product itself. And I noticed that sales is not my biggest passion, which I knew already before, I guess, to be honest. But yeah. So, and I also always thought as well, Hamburg is a great starting point, let's say. It's small and, kind of cozy, 14 people, and to understand, the business, that was great. But then basically where everything came from, so kind of where the music is really playing, was in Hilversum mostly, or in Paris. So I was a bit like, I would like to, I think, learn more now and go to the creative center where really everything is happening and the real experts are sitting there for all different positions. So they gave me a position in consumer insights.
What's that for those who don't know?
Yeah, indeed. So consumer insights, I never heard about it before, but it made sense in a way. So to directly transition to the more creative side was not really possible because I had no training whatsoever.
You already mentioned the SIPCA, so the competitors are looking at you and thinking like, well, we won't give you these places right now.
No, indeed. But consumer insights means it's a quite analytical job, basically. So my finance background did made a lot of sense, and my sales position there already made a lot of sense. Consumer insights means that I needed to generate basically testing. It's the department where all the consumer tests are done or basically analyzed more or less, because we have then companies that do the real testings for us. But we need to do the analytics in terms of really getting the insights out. So that was a very nice job, which was not my passion again at all, quite analytical.
You could honestly say to yourself, I don't feel like it's mine. I want something else. I'm asking about it. So yeah. I believe it's also at least the second piece of advice. If the first was the train talks.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and also accept that there are moments those 4 years, basically 5 years of my first contact in this or positioned in the company were not my dream jobs. Now, I did 2 years, I guess, in consumer insights, knowing from the start that this is not my dream. But it was very helpful in getting me, where I wanted to go in the end. And it's also interesting because now I was in this huge setting. So in Hilversum, there are more than 500 people. I think nowadays even 600 people. A lot of experts. You have everything from finance, to marketing and to technical perfumers to scent design department and also consumer insights. So that was really nice because I could go for lunch, with different people, ask for advice here and there, and I could also figure out for myself what do I actually want after that. That was a good step already. And consumer insight was very interesting because I had a lot of contact with the perfumers. So you're very close to the perfumers because they create perfumes, which are then proposed to customers. I was mostly focusing on fabric care, so everything like detergent and fabric softeners was my specification basically.
I believe that for IFF it's one of the major categories.
Yes, Hilversum is the creative center for fabric care, everything that has to do with laundry. Basically, we have then customers, and those customers were looking, let's say, for a new blue detergent, a blue fabric softener in a specific market, let's say Italy. And what I learned is that perfume is very culturally rooted. You think Europe is maybe kind of similar, or should be quite similar, but it's really not. A perfume, a blue fabric conditioner that you would propose in France would definitely not work in Italy. We had also customers in Israel, and different countries. So I really needed to learn, what are the specifics, culturally specific things for each of the countries. I needed also to travel quite some times in order to do in-home visits. So we visited people at home to understand how they really do the laundry.
Wow. Any very special destinations?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of Paris, we went to customers, and Italy, we went to people. Also to have focus groups, so 10 housewives talking to each other.
And you're filming it for the next movie? No.
I actually got to know, you can have the nicest perfume, but if nobody wants it, there's no market for it. You have to, and that's what consumer insight is about. You need to really find out what consumers want and give the feedback back to the perfumers, because perfumers are also sometimes then really in their own world, very creative, and they believe this is perfect, but then you have to kind of feedback what the consumer is thinking and then adapt with them what the perfume should then look like.
Well, I feel like this feedback thing is kind of difficult for people to accept, for the creative people.
Yeah, that's true.
How did you feel? Have you directly brought the results of the tests to them, or you just uploaded them in the system and just never saw perfumers' reaction?
Yeah. No. I did, because then Hilversum is, they are just around your corner, basically, in a different office. So I just went to them and said, here, listen, those are the results. What I see, yeah, but the good thing is it's not my opinion, you know. If it would be my opinion, I think they would have killed me indeed. But this was then easy because I could say like, yeah, you know, those are facts. We tested and also not just 30 people, but then maybe 150, you know, and then you see clear results. And that means that the perfumer has to go back to work and to rework the fragrance according to the outcomes.
It's a big thing for them. It's always a big thing to accept criticism. And I think in the industry, it's a huge hurdle. If you want to progress, you will have to accept criticism every time. But it's not the criticism of you and your work. It's just about knowing people, as you've said.
Yeah.
Knowing your audience.
Yeah.
So how many years did it take for you to feel empowered enough to ask for the third position, in fact, in the company?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot from the consumer insight department, and then I loudly spoke out that kind of I'm interested in a scent design position. I noticed already kind of the atmosphere also that's there, and because that also shapes your job, basically. You need to know if there are nice people there, working there. And it felt really like a good place for me to be. So then I told my boss that I'm interested in a scent design position. And back then, the big boss was a person who started in project coordination, kind of coordinator role. And he was convinced whenever somebody wants to become a scent design manager, you need to first start in project coordination. I was a bit like, but for me, that's kind of a step back because, I already did sales and also the consumer insight.
It looks like you had enough experience to be coordinating projects, right?
Did, yeah.
But it's about the ways
it was a principle. It was his principle. And I think he didn't want to let go from this principle and made an exception. That was the idea. So I was a bit like hesitant, but they offered me to have 50-50. So 1 year, it was because I said as well, you need to kind of time it, you know, that it's not like, oh, you're going to project coordination and then 3 years later I'm still stuck there. That I made sure like I'm really looking at the time, you know. And then they said to me, we offer you a half position. So half project coordination, half traineeship scent design management, so that we already get prepared for the job. So I was like, okay, that's a good one. Sounds interesting. In project coordination, I could see why the big boss was so fond of this, because indeed you learn a lot about like what is actually, because then you serve the scent design managers. You're like an assistant to the scent design managers in terms of like project deadlines, shipping, all the administrative work that needs to be done for the scent design managers.
It's like, you know, the very old way to train perfumers, right? You get an apprentice and like the apprentice has like, I saw different things from different centuries, but around 8 years of just helping to perfumer to get there. And it seems like the old way of doing things is still present.
Yeah, that's true. That's totally, that's how I also felt. In the end, I know he was having a point, because then I noticed as well, when I was a project coordinator, that's important, you know, for the scent design managers, the deadlines, how it all works, how long everything takes from creation until that it's really at the customer's warehouse. So all those things was indeed a good training. And I had a really nice boss at this time. He knew I wanted to grow, and he gave me quite a lot of nice side projects, which had already something to do with the scent design. So for instance, he asked me if I can organize 4 days perfume training for newcomers. Yeah, people that are new to the company, that start sometimes like in sales or in finance, you know, and they have never heard about Perfumery before, basically, but they will in the end sell our perfumes.
Right.
So they should understand a little bit more. And I was totally free to design those 4 days according to my taste. So that was amazing for me. So I had, I think, like 20 people from all over the world flying to hear a song, and I could train them for 4 days in Perfumery.
I really love, the parallel between you said in the very beginning that you were thinking about interior design. So the idea of design was in your head for quite a while. And then you came to this design in the training again and the scent design position. So very interesting that
true. There's a red line.
Keyboard was already
Yeah, true. Not funny. Yeah, I didn't see that before. Yeah, good. And true. Yeah, so that was great because for this training I needed to ask then a few different people if they can come as guest speaker to fill those 4 days. And I needed to learn a lot myself about, I prepared all those presentations that I did for those people. And yeah, that was a great opportunity that I got. And then the year was over and I directly got a position as a scent design associate, first of all, and then scent design manager, where I wanted to, end up basically. So that was nice, that I could actually make it. In order to get the job, I needed to do a 4.5 hours or something nose test. Not everybody can enter the scent design department because training is one thing, but they also check if you have the capabilities in terms of physical smelling, So they did a test with me, and if the result was good, they let me in, basically. And that was really good. The test outcome was super. So then they trained me a lot. Every week I was sitting with the perfumers to talk about history of fine perfumery, or smelling all the different ingredients that are on the palette at IFF, what's new on the market, all the new launches. Everything was about training me, and that was really cool. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Did you at that point feel that you're at the right place?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it was a very good team, a lot of nice people, exciting projects. It was very supportive network. The perfumers were also great. Now I was then traveling, as a different, with a different cap on, let's say, with a different hat. Not so much like in consumer insight anymore, but sometimes you travel then to customers and present, for instance. Yeah, no, I felt good there. The only thing that happened is then my own company.
But how much time did you spend as a scent design manager at IFF?
I was also pregnant twice in between, and there was COVID also. But in the end, I think 4 years, maybe more, maybe 5 years. Yeah, a lot of time to learn and to, different projects, different customers, different countries.
Yeah. Are there any lesser-known aspects of scent design which you discovered for yourself and maybe people don't really know about and are fascinated to know about from your experience? When you meet someone at the gathering and say, well, I'm a scent design manager, and they say, what are the most surprising things for them which you maybe could share?
Yeah, I think for people that are not from the industry, it is quite... weird, the title. Are you designing the perfumes? Scent design manager, I always say it's something in between the salesperson and the perfumer. Mm-hmm. Because the perfumer is very knowledgeable, but in their own words, dreamy, artistic words, basically, and the salesperson is on the other side of the extreme, quite focused on the return on investment and having all those figures in mind, and sometimes forgetting and not being able to know what the consumer actually wants in terms of perfume. So scent design manager is something in between that has knowledge about the perfumery part, not as much into the details as the perfumer, but with a good nose. So my job in French is called évaluatrice. So you really have to evaluate all the perfumes and decide. I'm basically the project manager in the end that decides on the which perfumes will be submitted to which customer. But I also had to know, of course, about the sales part. So budget, keeping, an eye on the budget, being sure that the perfume is technically okay and that it's for the right country and that our margins are okay. Yeah. So those things is also, it's a combination between sales and perfumery. Yeah.
That's all. What eventually inspired you to start your own brand?
It really, came by incident, I guess, because I had a boyfriend back then, and he worked in a bank. And I was just about to have all those trainings, we spent all the ingredients from IFF, single ingredients. I was making notes, and I really made a few notes always with the heart. I remember red hearts, that the ones that I loved, the ingredients where I was like, smelling by themselves. They're really beautiful. And my boyfriend at this time said he didn't wear any perfume. And I said to him, I get all the perfumes for free from IFF, from Tom Ford or whatever you want to name it. And he didn't want any of those. I was like, why? And he was like, in the morning as a man, you come out of the shower and you spray the perfume on your skin. It's so overwhelming. It's just far too intense for me. And he said, I didn't even have breakfast, so it's almost a bit sickly. And then you go to public transport, and then you have this cloud here and the other cloud there, and you cannot run away, but you have to smell those people. It's in the morning. And then he says in the afternoon or evening, he often went to customer dinner or events. And he said, then there's nothing left. So that's also something he didn't like. So it was really about the intensity. Too much at the beginning, not enough at the end. Plus he also says they're also sweet for men, sweets smelling a bit similar to him, what's out there on the market. So I said to him, listen, I just change, in terms of single ingredients, I make you something just for yourself, of course. See if you like it more like a skin scent enhancer. Because, of course, I'm not a perfumer, so normal perfumes have like maybe 113 ingredients, in the formula. That was not my intention, of course. But I thought, what if I just do something like a mix of nice ingredients that I love, where I didn't take their budget into account, and all of the boundaries. And I put it into an oil and not into alcohol. So normally what's on the market is all alcohol based. And that's why the cloud in the morning and everything that evaporates is also gone, of course. That's why there was nothing left at the end. So I put it into an oil, organic coconut oil, basically, that without a smell. And he was wearing it. And he came back the first evening and says, I went for lunch. And there was a lady, she was running 10 times up and down and up and down. Everybody thought she's crazy. But then she stayed, pointed at him and said, it's you. You smell so great.
Love it.
And that was the first moment where, I noticed, there's something maybe interesting happening. And he got a lot of other funny comments from people. I was not able to wear my perfume at IFF because, of course, I need to smell neutral. But because it's an oil, I noticed that my clothing, the ones that you don't wash too often, like your scarf, your jacket in winter and stuff, they were still smelling. So I got comments from from the perfumers, Franziska, you're smelling too intense of your perfume. I was like, I didn't even put it. And, but it was, on the scarf, and then it touched my skin again. And so, I got comments from people like biking behind me saying like, it's a shame. You're turning left. I need to go straight. It's so nice to bike behind you. I was like, I didn't even put my perfume.
It's a shame you're turning left and only in the Netherlands, like.
Indeed. And, so I have, really a collection of those funny comments and feedback that I got. And with the time, I noticed, then I had a colleague, for instance, she not working in scent design management. She wanted to wear it. She loved my perfume. And she got a lot of comments from within IFF, like, oh, I know where you walked. I can smell the whole trail around you. That was, I got a lot of nice feedback. And then, of course, the intention was never there. But then as I got so much more feedback and people asking, and then more and more, the idea was implemented in my mind that maybe one day I could actually also do it, as my own, start my own company and start my brand. Initially, that was not my idea at all. It was really simply for him. Yeah, and then this idea was getting bigger and bigger. And I was also a bit scared, of course, to just leave my job because I liked it a lot. There was no urgency to leave, let's say. So I thought, it's difficult to combine, of course. You cannot, at least for me, I had 2 little kids then also. I was not able to find the time to do next to my job to start my own company. It was a full-time job. And then when I had the kids 4 days, but still the one day it's with the kids, it's even more than work, kind of. So, and I had to travel a lot, always at least 2 hours traveling per day. So I was not able, but what I did is, I started my company, at least the things in the background, I did whilst still at work. So I had my website done. I had the certification that it's safe on skin done in the background. So that when I really leave the company, leave IFF, my corporate security, basically, that I'm not starting from zero, but that I could start a bit focusing on sales and focusing on things that generate already a bit money.
How did you feel about that? Did you feel right? Did you feel scared? Because people maybe think that there is nothing scary about leaving the corporate job, or the opposite. So what were your emotions?
Yeah, good question. I think it was such a process for me that I was really then running around in my corporate job, having my idea, having also maybe playing with my thought of leaving, actively thinking for myself, like, can I really leave this? Do you feel it? Am I ready? And like giving it a bit time because, as I said, there was no urgency. I really liked it, but I also felt I think I went once with my boyfriend to a dinner, and he said to me, "What about your company? Your own company? Is it still in your mind?" And I said, that I think, looking back at my life when I'm an old grandmother, and I would say that I always chose for the corporate because of the security, because I had nice colleagues and good projects, and everything was great. I think I would regret. I would have big regrets. And then my boyfriend was looking at me saying, like, but what are you waiting then for? I mean, COVID was over. So that was also something I wanted to wait because it was so uncertain. But then, the crisis arrived. It was everything. The prices went up of everything. And everybody was like, wow, you're leaving now in this uncertain time. But it was, for me, a longer process, I was already preparing in my mind for quite some while, which nobody knew, of course, in the corporate setting. But I did. And so when the day came that I really said I'm leaving, I was totally ready for it. I was really very much looking forward. I was also prepared, like I kind of more made a list for myself also what are the worst things that could happen. What are my biggest fears when I'm not in the corporate setting anymore? And I kind of thought about those, what I would do if, and I had all those mantras also kind of written down, all the things that motivational speeches come and kick ass and all those things. And then I was totally ready for them, looking forward. And I remember when other people were leaving, I was always the one having tears in my eyes. I'm also the one that was, price at churches, weddings and stuff like this. And I thought, oh God, I have my own leaving party basically there. I'm prepared a speech, and I thought I would cry like crazy maybe. No, not a single tear, because I think I was just, it felt good. It was good timing. And
your child was already born, sort of.
Yeah,
Wow.
indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think,
or at least conceived. But I'm really interested, because you said that you worked in consumer insights, and then of course project coordination and scent design management. Which maybe of these positions, and sales of course, helped you the most in the early days, or all of them again, because you were a jack of all trades, and you are still probably?
Yeah, good question. I guess the scent design job, because at least for the ingredients part, and knowing about like how to design a perfume, those things, the sales of course prepared me also, but in a different way, because the thing is, everybody is also saying, oh yeah, but you're from the industry, already, you have all those connections. And I'm like, no. All those connections are worth nothing for me, because I have connections then to the big private label houses and big supermarkets, which is absolutely not where I want to be with my high-end perfume nowadays. So all my connections were not valuable at all. I needed to start from zero in terms of that. So I think I learned a lot from all the different jobs, but nothing really prepared me for the entrepreneurial part.
Well, yeah, I could imagine. And even the fact that you worked with trends for quite a while, or how people perceive them, I also believe it doesn't really help you much, because what you do is not trends. To me, well, of course it's trendy, but it's a niche trend right now for the people who want to smell good but don't be a cloud. How could you maybe describe your customer right now? Because I know that it's always changing, but for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I noticed is I have a perfume oil. That's different. People don't know that here so much. They know body oils, but otherwise perfume is mostly as a spray, alcoholic spray. So that's something that I needed to, make people convince them that this is also a way to put perfume. And then I have a perfume that is very long lasting because of the oil, but it doesn't have the cloud at the beginning, indeed. So you have a constant something perfume experience around you, but it's not this huge cloud at the beginning and then nothing left at the end. It's much more linear. Yeah, and my customers nowadays, so the price is very high. I use natural pheromones in there, which I at the beginning just put because I really love them, the smell of it. Crazy ingredients. But nowadays I also, with all the comments that I received, I noticed maybe there's some magic going on as well from the natural pheromones, like really the attraction hormones. So all of this together, plus the fact that it's a skin scent enhancer, made me think, okay, the positioning has to be totally different as well. I don't want to be in Douglas and Estée Paris and Sephora, a mass product, because people that were wearing my perfume in the trial period when I was still in corporate, they always got back to me with a feedback saying that I get a lot of compliments from other people. But I always say that it's not, you cannot buy it yet. It's my perfume. I don't want anybody else to smell like me. So they don't want to share, basically. And that made me think, okay, in terms of positioning, I also need to be very niche, exclusive, and not being available anywhere. And so coming back to your question, my customer is somebody who's taking a lot of care of themselves. It's unisex, so men and women. So they value to have not the standard perfume, but more like a unique experience. They value often craftsmanship. So not, the types that they really want to have a story as well. So I do personal delivery wherever possible. Sometimes I have customers in, I don't know, Canada, so that's not possible. But here I do personal delivery. So I tell them about the story, about like how I started, what the perfume is like, how to use it, how to make the biggest impact, and to give them a story. And they love that. They love that they have something to tell, and they get a lot of compliments from others, and then they can tell a story that they have a unique perfume. And that smells very different on every skin because it's oil-based. So people often say to me, my customers say to me, I go to niche perfume stores, like for instance here in Amsterdam, you have the Skin Cosmetics, a niche perfume store. But then they say, my friends already, we all smell the same basically. They all go in my circle of friends, they all go to Skin Cosmetics. And I want to have something that is even more different and that nobody else can really buy. Last click,
I would like to just say that the pheromone topic is a very huge one, and we definitely not gonna dig into that right now too much. How do you define pheromone?
Yes, it's a big topic indeed. Pheromones, where you describe them basically as the attraction molecules, hormones in order to attract other animals. So I use, for instance, a pheromone from the beaver. And the beavers, they spray something on rocks, which is not pee, but it's really something that is only there to make it possible to attract other sexual partners, basically. So this is something, so a smell that attracts other from the same species partners, in order to be able to, survive, basically.
Did you discover these raw materials during your work at IFF, or afterwards you've been searching for something like that specifically?
No, indeed. Yeah, it's a good question. At IFF, we don't use natural ones because they also exist, because the smells are very intriguing and nice. But in big corporates, you would never use natural ones because natural ones, then the quality can always differ a bit, being different from batch to batch, and it's also too expensive. So what I did is I went to a workshop or like a training for 1 week in Italy with a natural perfume guru, a natural perfumer who did a 1 week course in Italy. It was my most expensive holidays, but I thought it sounded great and I wanted to know more. And he had a big love for natural pheromones. And I got hooked as well. I smelled it and I was like, wow, there's something going on, there's something mystical about it. And I also let my customers, I always do events for my customers as well, because I say I'm not selling a product, but an experience. So I practice what you preach, kind of. I invite them for perfume shows, evenings where we smell the most intriguing ingredients that are in my formula as well. And two of those are then also the pheromones. And when I let them smell those pure, because they're quite intense and heavy and different, I get also their really interesting comments, like kind of like instincts, what comes out, instinctive emotions, and something is happening with people. So that's something that I'm very grateful that I did this course, because I there figured out about this world of natural pheromones.
Yeah, you found something interesting for yourself. That's the whole topic. I'm really trying to be a little bit neutral, because people have very different opinions, and the fragrance industry, if you say pheromones, gonna be looking at us and saying absolutely different things. But I believe there are a lot of opinions out of the mainstream industry. And
I know also because the industry is full also of, you can buy those pheromone perfumes that don't have a smell to it. Yeah, but what if you look at those? Of course, they're not working. They are synthetic. And synthetic pheromones, yeah, I'm very convinced also that cannot work. So I'm very, very conscious that the topic is hot, but I'm not saying indeed what you say that I have a scientific proof for that. I'm just saying I use natural ones where I know the quality is super well. And I feel that the comments that I get from my customers and other people is not just like, oh, you smell nice, but much more something like, yesterday I had somebody standing behind me in the line and she was like, oh, hurry up in the line. We were waiting in the line. Hurry up, otherwise I'm biting in you. You smell so nice.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So this is something that made me think, yeah, maybe that's coming from the pheromones. I'm not, or at least it contributes somehow. That's my idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also could just use a different word for those who don't like it. I mean, if people
Indeed.
consider pheromones only specifically to like something, we could say like the attraction molecules, as you've said.
Indeed. And what I'm always say, because pheromones, not a lot of people know them, I always say I use the laws of attraction from the animal world.
Yeah, no, good.
That leaves it a bit open. Yeah.
So maybe that's why it's wild perfumery.
Yeah, that's wild perfumery, indeed.
Yeah, right.
It's not all beautiful and like all the advertisements with Keira Knightley and stuff. No, it's the wild, natural, wild perfumery, indeed. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. It seems like we're talking about niche inside the niche and maybe even further inside the niche. But I love it. Like, what probably professional piece of advice could you give to someone who wants to transition from, I don't know, whatever background to a fragrance industry?
I think my biggest advice is to find the right moment to leave. I feel so many people are getting burnouts nowadays, and for me, I felt like the corporate was great. It was a really nice experience for me to learn a lot. But you have to also listen to yourself and notice when there's a point coming when you get frustrated. And then I feel that people are still staying, but then in a frustrated way. And that ends then in bitterness. And then it gets the spiral of negativity. And then people are maybe not nice to them. And then you get a burnout and everything feels terrible. I have so many people around me that went into this negative spiral, and I was like, oh, that's such a shame, because I think if you would have left, like when you were still enjoying, but when you felt like I want something else in my life and looking for, that would have been much nicer. And I feel also now I left in a good moment, not being frustrated, which gives me a lot of more energy also, because I feel I don't feel any regrets looking back, but also the industry is small. So whenever I have an issue or a question, I now have my huge network also from my corporate, which I wouldn't have if I would have left in bad terms, and now I still have my friends. They became friends, my older colleagues, and it feels really nice and supportive. So I think knowing when to leave is a huge part that gives you a lot of energy and good vibes. And that's my advice.
Well, I really love this piece of advice. I think I've never heard it. Like it's not something common to give it like that. But thank you. Well, I have a few blitz questions to you. So the first one, name a fragrance note that instantly transports you to your early career days.
The lipstick accord. Yeah, it's a violet note. I smelled it when I was in sales, indeed, in my position, and I smelled it and I was like, wow, my mother smelled violet then apparently with her lipstick. And that's the note that I also took for my perfume, for my third perfume, the lipstick accord.
What's one professional habit you think every scent designer should develop?
Time management.
Which ingredient do you think is a hidden gem in perfumery?
The natural pheromones. Hidden, yeah. And I also, I'm very much into the woody, smoky, whiskey notes. So something, I guess, that's not really very popular out there and on the commercial market, at least.
All right. What was the last fragrance ingredient you discovered?
Ambrosinite, amber. It's a synthetic amber, very powerful, a bit like amber extreme.
Uh-huh.
You heard about amber extreme?
Yeah.
Indeed. Gives a lot of power to the performance of the formula.
What is one ingredient you always avoid?
Personally, at least for my perfumes, which doesn't mean that I don't like it in general, but I'm not into the white floral narcotic, lilies and ylang ylang and those.
What's the most unexpected source of inspiration which you've probably discovered for you?
My grandmother used to, she was a horse lady. She always had horses, and the smell when she came back home from being with the horses was a big inspiration nowadays for me, because the smell of horse, also even the pee and the poo, which normally of a dogs or anybody it's terrible, but of horses it's not. And combine the leather of the saddle with the sweat and the hay. Yeah, for me, it's wonderful. It almost smells like whiskey and tobacco, and has some magic.
And the last one. If you could design a scent for any modern public figure, I've already seen one of the posts about it, but if you could design a scent, who would it be?
Good question. Wonderful question. A big shout out here. I just had a post indeed for 1st of April Fool, that I would like to design a perfume for Maxima, like a tailor-made perfume, because my perfumes are unique in a way. I have 3 perfumes and they smell very different on each skin, because they're just enhancing basically your skin perfume. Because it's oil, it smells very different. But for Maxima, I thought she needs her own tailor-made perfume, which is still kind of in line with my philosophy of perfumery. But yeah, that would be great.
I think we need to send this episode afterwards, or at least this part.
If you have contacts, I wouldn't mind it.
Many thanks, Franziska. I really enjoyed talking to you. And if our listeners want to continue enjoying your work and your style of communication, what are the best ways to do it?
I'm very mostly active on LinkedIn. You can find me there under my name, Franziska Josteit. And then I'm also a bit active on Instagram. And I have a website called www.luisajo.com.
Yeah, we'll be leaving all the links in the description box. Well, yeah, thanks again, Franziska. I really loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
This was it.